Any signs of life?
We sent up a drone craft. It took these readings.
Crikey, Charlie, look at that. Oh, I know somebody who'd love a look at that.
Pull to open.
Pull to open?
Yes, and what do you do?
I'm not a taxi service, you know.
You materialised around her.
I'm not entirely sure what's going on.
Tell him something, quick.
Come on then, everyone.
Here come the drums!
So here it comes, the sound of drums. Here come the drums, here come the drums.
Hello, and welcome to Pull to Open, an ongoing quest with Sonic Screwdrivers to watch every single story in the television show that we know as Doctor Who in entirely random order. My name is Chris Taylor.
And I'm Pete Paschal, and welcome to the big game. It's the big game day. Actually, it's a week after the big game day. Today's the big game day, but the game that you want to hear is like Pull to Open versus an adventure of Doctor Who, two learned journalists who occasionally write about Doctor Who going head to head with an adventure in space and time. That's what's happening here.
That's
today.
Right. That's right. It's Doctor versus Doctor. It's story versus story. And we're seeing some of that today. And it's really, I mean, taking this random trip really gives us some interesting connections. But now it's starting to tell a story. And I'm going to tell you the story of where we've been. And a little bit, we're going to tease a little bit about the random connections. But 3 episodes ago, we were at a Chris Chibnall joint called Revolution of the Daleks, in which the Doctor had been away for 10 months in space jail, and the fan was very upset about it. 2 episodes ago, that might be relevant, I may be foreshadowing. 2 episodes ago, we were at The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe, another holiday special, a little bit more Christmassy with Matt Smith. And that turned out to be very close in space and time to where we are today. And introduced a whole host of other things, including how nutty the Doctor is when he doesn't have human companions around, and how he needs to gather lots of people and show off. That may become relevant. And last time, we went to another special. It was originally intended to be a holiday special. It ended up being David Tennant's last pre-holiday adventure, The Waters of Mars, in which we discussed some cute robots. And also, I'll just get this out of the way now. We had the Cloister Bell podcast on, and I've been kicking myself for the last week because we did not mention the fact that The Waters of Mars is one of the relatively few Doctor Who adventures that has a Cloister Bell in it. That is why the randomizer took us there, above all other reasons. So, sorry, Cloister Bell podcast. Love you, Cloister Bell podcast. We really should have given your name more of a shout out in that episode. However, the Cloister Bell podcast then took us, because Rob and Liam decided our next random adventure, and they took us to one that didn't immediately seem like it had any connection to any of these 3 adventures, and that is Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. Yes, Dinosaurs as a Spaceship. You may know it better as the Doctor Who episode that poses the question of, what if the first Doctor Who story was called Phone Box in a Junkyard? Or the second, Mutant in a Mark III travel machine, or whatever they were called. No, it's a very, perhaps the most obvious title that tells the entire story in Doctor Who history. That's what you might remember it for. You might remember it as being a bit of a light romp, but it has connections to literally everywhere we've been in the last 3 weeks, specifically that being away for 10 months thing, which the Ponds happen to handle very, very differently than the fam did. We're going to invite Chris Chibnall, the writer of Revolution of the Daleks, to sit down and take a few notes from this 2012 Whiter Checks Notes, Chris Chibnall. I think those 2 guys should get together, and maybe there's some things they can learn from. But here we are, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. You've got a dinosaur in the background there, Pete. I love it.
Thanks, yeah. So after a trio of specials, we're at a not special episode. Do I mean that literally or figuratively? Tune in later. But I will say that the title, the obviousness of the title, may be only tied by Let's Kill Hitler. also of this era.
But Let's Kill Hitler didn't actually live up to the title, unfortunately.
True. But Blink did, so that one's a little more of an imperative. So
and also stay tuned for Chris's History Corner, in which Dinosaurs on a Spaceship will be improbably tied to Hitler.
Oh, wow, man. I want to cut right to that. So because of that, I'm just going to cut right to the poll to open feedback loop, everybody. Yes, we've entered the part of the show where we want to continue and inspire conversation with you, our listeners. For starters, we love it when our listeners have tons of fun listening. In case you've missed the last couple weeks and you haven't seen it, there is actually a poll to open bingo card designed by one Joe, the Josen one on Twitter. And you can go there to either our Twitter profile or the show notes, and we'll link to it. And you can just play along and stamp squares like Viscount Banger or Chris's History Corner, which is coming up later.
You're going to get that.
Perhaps a cheesy segue. I don't know if what I just did counts, but just stay tuned. I'll have some more for you.
Not cheesy enough. Not cheesy enough. But speaking of bingos, we don't just have that bingo card. We've been talking for some time, and we're going to have to do this eventually. I think of getting bingos as we go along our random journey. And Pete, I'm going to tease Dinosaurs as a Spaceship a little bit, just by saying that we now have a Queen Nefertiti bingo.
Queen Nefertiti bingo? She's in another episode?
She's in another episode, and we've been there. And I'm going to leave you with that thought.
Okay. My goodness, I should
you
know
think
this.
on that as we continue. Just, throwing a few cliffhangers here into the feedback loop.
Well, I'll definitely say, we're nowhere near dinosaur bingo.
No, we're not.
There is, obviously Invasion of the Dinosaurs, but, a bunch of other references and or appearances of various creatures. What was the first? Deep Breath. That was a good one, too. So,
Deep Breath, yes.
I think this might be our first entry in the dinosaur bingo card. I could be wrong.
It could be, yeah. And is it our first Silurian adventure?
Actually, good question.
Silurian adjacent? Because I do know there were dinosaurs in a previous Silurian.
And technically, the Proto-Nestor gang always counts as taking that Silurian bingo card. I don't think we've done any of those though. So we're not. This is really at the beginning of our Silurian bingo card too.
Sweet.
So good times. All right, moving on in the feedback loop, guys. You know what makes podcasts overjoyed? It is, of course, reviews. Yes, if you would go to the Apple Podcast app or the Spotify app on your phone and leave a rating or review or both, if you can, we would very much appreciate it. They really do help the show. They'll increase our visibility on both of those apps, and we can spread the good word of Pull to Open to even more listeners. So please go ahead, leave a review, and if you are so inclined, please go ahead, leave an emoji title of a Doctor Who story in there. So a Doctor Who title in the form of emojis. We love that. We'll introduce our segment or continue our segment where I try to flummox Chris on your emoji title. He won't look at them. I promise you. I will. I'll make sure we get it all out to everybody.
But you don't have to stump me. You could do something easy like a dinosaur emoji and a rocket emoji.
There you go. Boom! We just did one.
Exactly. Yeah. Reviews on an app.
All right. Speaking of Spotify, hey guys, there's special stuff just for you on the app. Not only can you rate the show, but we will be giving more polls every week. So you'll either be able to vote, give your voice on the rating. So as you know, we have 4 ratings in our rating system. And we always give every episode either a Dalek, Ogron, Professor Hater, or Viscount Banger. Explanations coming later. So you can also give your rating. And occasionally we'll even ask if you think our explanations for, say, the Clara Splinter or the evil plot succeeding and our 4 questions to Doomsday at the end of every episode. You can vote on those too. So we actually have some results from a recent poll that we
looking at these results, I'm suddenly becoming an election denier, Pete.
Well, let me just explain what this is. So we put out a poll for one of our recent podcasts for The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe. And the explanations that we put forward for where the Clara Splinter is in that episode, we had 3. So 1, is it an elf in the living room? It's basically encouraging Cyril to open his present early. Is she a groundskeeper at the manor, making sure there's enough lawn for a plane to land? Or is she the manager of the auxiliary police, maintaining all police boxes so that they look perfect? And the results are in.
Mm-hmm.
And it is explanation 3 that the readers like, that she is a manager for the auxiliary police, maintaining all those police boxes so they look picture perfect and just like the 11th Doctor's TARDIS in that.
Okay, can I take a moment to talk to my fellow Spotify listeners? And first of all, I blame myself for not voting on this one. But secondly, my elf in the living room, that was me. I thought that you need some sort of reason for Cyril has to go early into that present. Otherwise, the Androzani trees are all going to be melted down. So that makes the most sense.
He's a kid.
Okay, maybe not, but I just like the idea of Jenna Coleman dressed as an elf. We didn't get to see it in Last Christmas, but only 14% agreed with me on that. Sadly for you, Pete, only 29% agreed with your. I think this was your better option, the groundskeeper option.
The groundskeeper one, yeah. It just does. I don't think it cries out as much for explanation as the police box thing. So.
Evidently, all of our fans are extreme nerds who are just like, we need to somehow explain how there was a police box in 1941. That's right.
38. I got that right.
Oh yeah. That's right, because it's pre-war.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Why is there another police box that looks exactly like our TARDIS? Like
with the
most
lights and everything. it's like got wired up.
Which is plot-wise the most inconsequential thing, but Doctor Who nerd-wise, way far and away the most important thing.
Exactly.
To sort out here. So I get where you're coming from, people.
Anyway, thank you, fellow nerds, for voting for that and going for one of my explanations. So watch for those polls on Spotify, only available to our Spotify listeners. But you can be a Spotify listener. Go ahead. Just download the app. It's on all kinds of platforms.
Yes.
Moving on, we have okay, guys, this is the big announcement, honestly. This podcast. I mean, this is huge, okay? As of now, as of when you are hearing this podcast.
Or seeing it,
yes. Every single episode of Pull to Open is now on YouTube. Crowd goes wild.
That is the first touchdown of the show.
We finally got them all up there. The last one we finally got up was a banger, appropriately enough. It was Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead.
Oh, good one.
So as we're recording this, I'm still need to upload it, but it will be up by the time you hear this. And now you can binge listen or binge watch every single episode of Pull to Open Season 3, which is basically the 2022 episodes. All of them are up there, and you can binge the entire podcast if you want from the very beginning.
And if people only want to binge the stuff starting with when I start moving, where do they go to?
when you have actual video.
When I have actual video on my side,
you turn your camera on. That was the thing. Is our first couple of episodes that we first did when we were kind of not knowing what we were doing. We actually had the camera on, so we've used that footage, and then we had them off for a while. I started to put. It was like about 1/4 of the way through season 2 of the podcast, I believe. It would be right around when my camera was on most of the time consistently, and yours wasn't.
Right.
And then somewhere towards the end of that season, we got savvy with the YouTube.
Yeah. We're going to have to obviously find the folks who do the animations for the missing episodes, and I would love to see like a black and white animated version of me for these things, just not moving very much, like a Troughton animation. Love that idea. Listen, we have great commenters there. We've got a lot of people following us on YouTube. Things are going great. We're over 500. We're cutting close to 600 subscribers. I've said we want to get to 1,000 subscribers in 2023. I'm moving up the date. Okay, everybody, I'm moving it up. I think we got momentum there. I think we could get to 1,000 by summer. So, folks, that's crazy.
If you subscribe to the podcast on a podcast app, please fire up a web browser at some point. Go to YouTube. Subscribe to us there too. It's going to help the show, and tell your friends about it. Super easy to find us there. Fun stuff's there. All of our plot summaries are there. Our plot summaries are cut for widescreen there. That's awesome. You also get the same shorts you get on TikTok. with different commentary, and there's good commentary on YouTube, believe it or not. So
Yeah, that's how often has that sentence been uttered. But speaking of TikTok, we did just do a TikTok live. We're now doing them every Sunday before the show. We had Pete had a fabulous system for who counts as a companion. We've talked about that in previous episodes. We'll get to it here. This is actually a perfect episode to talk about it because we ended up deciding, can we spoil this bit?
Do it.
The TikTok Live people knew this first, but we ended up deciding that Rory's dad is a companion. Counts as a companion. He's got the points.
Yep.
And that may be the most exciting thing about dinosaurs on a spaceship.
So thank you, TikTok listeners, for inspiring us to do that. We've got a whole system to find out who counts as a companion. It's a point system. You will be able to filter out some people and get other people in, and it is a bit of a work in progress, so feel free to comment on it, and we might even do a whole special episode on that at some point, so watch for that. But also on TikTok, we do have some great comments on our short videos, and I would love to read one here. So our TikTok comment of the week, this is on our video about the Sonic being weak to wood, which
came out in the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe. Basically, it was the Sonic's Waterloo as far as wood is concerned.
And this comment comes from one Glenn Harkness, possibly brother of Jack. But
the lesser known face of Bo. Yes,
it's the elbow of Bo, I think. Glenn Harkness says, "My headcanon is that the Sonic knows it can disintegrate things and refuses to do that on anything that might be alive." Interesting take.
I like it. But then the Sonic has been hasn't it been used on living things? Or no, it's only ever on technology, right?
Yeah, I think the Sonic, I think there's a bit of a mystery here. I don't mind the idea that the Sonic is more safety, but I do like the line. There's a line in a Tennant episode. Actually, it's Doomsday, I believe. And the Daleks are talking about how they're simply not threatened by the Sonic. That's just a harmless device. And I do like that idea that the Sonic simply doesn't do that, right? Like it's not a harmful thing, even though it has been shown to do so. So I don't think this person's necessarily wrong. There are times when the Sonic is wielded more like a weapon. But I prefer sort of the earlier view, the sort of earlier in the New Who view, where he'd pull it out and people would make jokes about, are you going to install some cabinets or something? Like, what are you doing?
I was just going to mention that the classic John Hurt line from Day of the Doctor will never die. What are you going to do? Assemble a cabinet at them. And I was just literally thinking, as you were outlining what the Daleks thought about the Sonic, I'd love to hear that line spoken in the voice of a Dalek. What are you going to do? Assemble a cabinet at us?
Well, you fulfilled your own wish there.
I know, yeah. I know. I'm no Nicholas Briggs, but yeah, maybe we can get some. We'll add that in post. We'll add the Dalek voice. Daleks do not assemble cabinets. Explain.
Daleks do not use cabinets.
Daleks do not go to IKEA on the weekends. So that's it for the feedback. Well, we've got Twitter and Instagram. Pull to Open 63.
Still on Twitter and Instagram.
Still there.
Yep. Also a good place to find the bingo card. We're still getting videos up there and some original photos and plenty of discussion happening on Twitter. So join us.
Yes, join us. Follow us. Follow the Close to Bell podcast people as well. We just retweeted them. So that'll be easy to do. And yeah, is it time to board our spaceship?
I think it's time to board the spaceship because there's not much going on in Doctor Who news today, and let's just get right to it. Let's pod.
They're shooting with Shooty. They're shooting with Shooty. I don't really keep up with all that stuff. It kind of feels like death by 1,000 cuts if you read it beforehand.
Yeah, it's very expectations too much. I'm muting and unfollowing like crazy on Twitter because there's too much stuff on from the sets now, like the location stuff, and everyone's snapping photos of who this or that, and it's too much. I don't want to be that spoiled. Actually, I never want to be spoiled. I really try to avoid that, but I'm on Twitter too often now, so.
It's interesting. For this episode, I was looking back at everything that was written about dinosaurs on a spaceship in Doctor Who magazine and other locations before it came on, and you practically had the whole story. You could piece it together, and you would probably be a lot more excited about it than what ended up on screen. And I think what we're going to discover here is that this was an episode that functions much better if you don't go into it with any expectations. So I think that's really the best way to approach all of Who and all of New Who. I mean, it's going to be hard for the 60th anniversary to top our expectations, I think, because we're so excited about that. But with Shooty's first season, let's just let it happen.
Well, I'd also like people to manage their expectations for this coming TLDW.
Nice.
If there is, if history is any indication, I might need a little extra time, but I won't get it.
Yes.
Because this is a regular old episode. We know what we get with those regular old episodes.
You do. You know what you get, and you'll have to put up with it. So, as regular listeners know, we do TLDW, Too Long Didn't Watch, or Too Long Doctor Who. Or Too Long Don't Worry. It'll be fine.
Hey, I like that one.
Too long. Don't worry, Pete. It's too long. Don't worry if it's too long. Anyway, we assign 1 minute per New Who episode, 30 seconds per classic episode. This is definitely a New Who episode. There's none of the extended time versions that we had with those specials. This is just a flat out minute. So one of us, in this case Pete, is going to summarize the entirety of the story of Dinosaurs in a Spaceship in slightly longer time. I mean, we often say that it's in record time, but I think the record time for summarizing Dinosaurs as a Spaceship is whenever anyone says the title. So
can I just say the title?
Yeah,
is that a
Dinosaurs a Spaceship? Done. No, because that's actually not the full story. Something that Chris Chibnall said many times at the time. Like Stephen Moffat pitched the title. You can't just do that. You need more. So
you just wander around a ship and look at dinosaurs. Might have been a better choice though, but never mind. We'll get to that. We'll get to the commentary soon.
Wandering around a ship looking at dinosaurs was, I believe, the title in France. It's much more existential. Okay. So you have 1 minute. You're feeling good. You've closed all your tabs.
I'm feeling good when it's going to be done. I'm feeling like, let's get this over with. I'm just like, boom, let's get to it. Let's go.
All right, here we go with the official pull to open summary of Dinosaurs on a Spaceship in 3, 2, 1, go.
So the Doctor's in the future. It's the 24th century, and there's this ship the size of Canada that's going to hit the Earth. But so the space agency, the Indian space agency, is going to destroy it with missiles. The Doctor has 6 hours to figure it out. He recruits Queen Nefertiti from ancient Egypt, this hunter guy from the turn of the 20th century, and Rory's dad to go to the ship and figure out what's going on. It turns out it's the Silurian Ark that they built with tons of dinosaurs on it, but the Silurians are all gone, and they don't know why. When they encounter these two robots and do some investigating, they figure out why that these robots who are working for this black market guy called Solomon actually killed all the Silurians. And by doing that, because the guy wanted the dinosaurs to essentially sell them, but he couldn't steer the ship after that. It just started going back to Earth on its default. So now he's changing his plan. He wants to take Queen Nefertiti, who's also rare, and use her, and just who doesn't care about the ship hitting Earth and everyone dying. But the Doctor redirects the missiles that the Indian Space Agency was going to do at Solomon's ship. It gets blown up. He returns everyone to their times, except Nefertiti stays with the hunter guy, and Rory's dad goes and travels.
Nice.
I thought I was going to do it, and then seconds over.
It's you would have, if this had been a special, you would have gotten it. That was 1 minute 5 seconds. I'm going to say, it's been. You're used to having a little bit more time because that's what we've had recently. So I think that's fair enough. I think you did a good job.
I tripped a little bit over the robots, which are kind of irrelevant in some ways, but like. I stopped with robots and I kind of paused there. Like, should I talk more about the robots? It's like, no, not really.
No, not really.
No, we're just talking about those robots.
Very, very incidental. I did wonder whether mentioning that the spaceship is the size of Canada was necessary, but I wasn't going to.
Well, I want to get into that. But one thing I will note about my own TLDW, which I will indicate a bit of my commentary about it. I mentioned the dinosaurs once.
Yes.
And I didn't plan that. It's just that I really didn't. I didn't think I'm only going to mention the dinosaurs and just summarize the plot. The reason I didn't mention the dinosaurs again is since they really just don't matter. Like, they're just cargo. And they're not really part of the story in any active way whatsoever. And this, to me, and here's, I'm kind of going to my verdict right at the bat, but this is why a big reason anyway, why this episode really fails, because it sort of promises this small screen Jurassic Park, and it isn't that. And it's not because the special effects, which are fine. I mean, sure, they're CGI, and you're not going to get, Hollywood level quality, but the dinosaurs don't really play a part. Yes, the Triceratops kinda, but I feel like they're just totally irrelevant. Even like, you see scenes like where the pterodactyls come and they're just like, oh no, we have to run from the pterodactyls now. And there's not even a moment where like anyone gets picked up or gets maybe thrown to another location. When the raptors attack at the end, there's nothing interesting about it. They're literally just standing at the doorway, taking shot after shot after shot. There's no thought to an antagonist here, or even a character. They're just not characters, and it's annoying. And you want something better. You want a rousing dinosaur adventure, and this isn't it.
Yeah, certainly if you're coming to this looking for Jurassic Park, you're going to be disappointed.
It's not even Land of the Lost.
What it is a little bit is a BBC show called Primeval, which is the Mill, the special effects company that does special effects for Doctor Who. They also did the show called Primeval, and basically it proved that they could do dinosaurs. Now, Primeval was not very popular. I believe it did get cancelled in the end. I'm not 100% sure on that. Don't quote me. But basically the Mill came to Moffat and said, hey, look, we can do dinosaurs now. You want to do a dinosaur version? And Moffat, if you go back to the old Doctor Who magazines, he describes himself so excited about this that he was running around pretending to be an airplane, making airplane noises. And that's sort of a running joke throughout the column, like when he tells Chris Chibnall is running around making airplane noises. Now, rule number one, Moffat lies. I don't think there were actually airplane noises involved, but it does suggest that this was sort of a sense of like, the kid in you comes out, and you're like, we can put dinosaurs on a spaceship now. The Mill explicitly wants to do this. He was sad because he hadn't greenlit Chibnall's most recent script. I think there was something along those lines. Apparently, Chibnall invented some monster that hadn't been seen up until that point. Not sure what the story is on that, or if anyone's ever gone back to check. But yeah, so he wanted to throw Chibs something. He threw him this. He pitched it to him as dinosaurs on a spaceship, and Chibnall did the rest.
What has Chibnall done in the series at this point? What else has he written?
He did 42.
42 is kind of okay.
Yeah. He did the Silurian doubleheader.
That's right. Hungry Earth and Cold Blood. Okay, so
yes.
that gives you the tie-in to a little bit of like he's not really a tie-in to that episode, but I know one of the actors comes back.
Yes,
and I guess you could say Chibnall's the Silurian guy at this point.
He kind of is, and he named a Silurian after Malcolm Hulke in that doubleheader, and here he names a Silurian after Barry Letts, like the one Silurian you've seen on screen is an homage to Barry Letts. So he's like
Blaytall or something.
Yeah, Blyteth. But yes, it's like it's Chibnall being like an uber nerd Doctor Who fan, remembering that the Silurians had dinosaurs in several classic series episodes. So that's the connection he's thinking of. One, okay. But that's the connection he's thinking of. Like that's his starting point. I think Moffat also suggested that the dinosaurs on a spaceship would be heading for Earth.
Right.
And I don't know if there's like an explicit Adric reference here to the spaceship that killed the dinosaurs, but
it's kind of an amusing flip if you think about it for fans, because there you have a human spaceship that is threatening and does explode and kill all the dinosaurs, and here there's a dinosaur spaceship heading to Earth threatening to kill all the humans, right? So, of course, it doesn't happen. Although I got to say the a solution, I guess, that the Indian Space Agency decides to do, which is to blow it up with some missiles, is not going to work, right? I mean, this is often documented. I'm surprised they sort of make this mistake in that you destroy an asteroid heading for Earth, like all that stuff, like you can't destroy matter. I mean, it's all the same matter is still heading for Earth, whether it's one object or not. So, maybe it'll burn up more in the atmosphere, but if it's the size of Canada, you're basically incinerating the atmosphere.
Basically. And if you've read Seven Eves by Neil Stevenson, which you really should if you haven't. It's all about the moon disintegrating and how that's affects the Earth. Now, this would do something along the same lines. It might well eradicate the whole of humanity. So yeah, it is a bit weird. First of all, it's a little bit weird that it's the Indian Space Agency, that we're still sort of doing this chauvinistic, nationalistic thing in the 24th century.
That was a weird choice. I don't even know why they did that. I guess it's representation, which is fine, but it is like, well, this doesn't really match with the vision of Doctor Who as we go out into the cosmos as a united Earth, and we with diverse crews along the lines of what we just saw in the waters of Mars or the Sanctuary base that we see later. And I headcanon this a little bit by thinking, well, it's the Indian outpost or Indian division of a more general space agency, and I think maybe it's just where they have the missiles, or it's the part of the Earth that's the closest space agency base to the ship when it's about to hit, because they say they only have 6 hours, right? So that's plausible.
Right. But you'd think there would be some discussion with the rest of Earth. What is the rest of Earth doing here? Has India just entirely taken over the air defense? And it is very interesting, and here's another fascinating reason for the randomizer to have brought us here. And I'm not going to say I'm scared of the randomizer, because that's a bingo card. I'm not going to give you that square so easily. I'm actually just in awe of the randomizer. Because we had just yesterday...
Chris gets emotional about the randomizer.
Just yesterday, we had NORAD was activated by Prime Minister Trudeau to shoot down an object that we still don't know what it was, that was coming into Canadian airspace. And it was not, well, first of all, the fact that the random mention of Canada, brilliant segue into this. But it was
pretty
not...
Cool-y.
It was an instruction for many people that NORAD is a thing, and the Canadian Prime Minister could actually order, American jets to scramble, and vice versa, right?
Oh, you better start scrambling there, eh? Oh, buddy.
Wow,
big object over your house. What's that about?
It's like Justin Trudeau's in the room. It's amazing.
See, I'm entitled to do that, guys, because I'm half Canadian, so it's okay.
Hashtag representation.
It's funny that Canada gets represented as the size of something, because it's a big thing, which, by the way, no one told the special effects people this thing was supposed to be the size of Canada, because it's clearly not in every single exterior shot. And it's overkill. You don't have to have I wish Doctor Who, honestly, this is an episode like this is an opportunity for education, right? That's original mandate. There's real science to do with dinosaurs, and there's real science to do with space, and you don't need something the size of Canada is going to destroy the Earth, but really something the size of Manhattan will also destroy the Earth. And all you need to do is make it city-sized, and you've got a world-destroying problem on your hands, and still plenty of room for the dinosaurs to run around.
Here's a question for you, Pete. How do you know they were wrong? How do you know Canada isn't smaller in the future? In the 24th century, we do know with the Beast Below, right? Scotland left Starship UK. Maybe
it would make sense too, because what we're going to have with a warming planet, we're going to have the water wars. That they should do that in the 22nd century, and Canada has 1/5 of the world's fresh water.
Right.
So everyone does a water grab, and now it's just a couple of guys in Mississauga. It's like Canada.
Well, also, you've got the First Nations, you've got the Quebecois. Am I pronouncing that correctly? There are many splinter groups within Canada that may just bring it down to a very, very small, maybe it's just Vancouver.
Maybe this provides the other explanation for the Indian Space Agency. The 24th century is strangely factionalized. Maybe it's a weird aberration in the future. Maybe they reunite or something. I don't mind that.
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, when we went to the 10th planet, that was very much the UN taking space-based decisions for everyone when another planet's approaching. And that was set in 1986. So it is very interesting to contrast that, which I believe did have an Indian representative at that UN scene in the 10th planet. So you contrast that with dinosaurs in a spaceship, and you get a very sad story of how much more nationalistic we've become in our future outlook since 66.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, Not to dwell on Canada too much, because we've got a lot to talk about here. But
we do. Okay, so this one starts off with the Doctor kind of assembling the gang.
yes,
This is the first time we kind of see a gang, and I think is trying to consciously or unconsciously foreshadow the Quartermaster gang later. Maybe that's just that. Maybe that is playing off this. I don't know which came first, but it's a weird choice. I kind of like it, like just to do something different. Why not? So it's a weird cast of characters he decides to recruit, which seems to be just whoever he's adventuring with lately. So Queen Nefertiti, because they sort of open. That's actually the kind of the cold open, isn't it? Right, where he's just kind of like she's trying to make out with him and wants to travel with him. So he's like, okay, why not? And then there's this rando, essentially kind of an Alan Quatermain stand-in.
yeah,
His name is John Riddell, and so he gets him. That's really random. And then he gets Amy and Rory, and so he's like, okay, here's my crack team, my gang. And there's the funny joke of accidentally getting Brian by materializing around them, and he whips around like thinking he's like some foreign agent or alien agent that's transmitted into the TARDIS. So yeah, at least it leads to some amusing stuff. And again, like I say, you could say why, but I'm the guy who would say, why not? Sure. Let's get this crazy cast of characters and see what happens. And it's not all bad. It's actually like some interesting, fun stuff that happens.
All right. So should we take them one by one? Because I got some stuff to say up in this joint about Nefertiti.
Are we in the corner?
Yes, we're in the corner.
All right.
We're in the corner for the first time. It's actually a pretty bare corner because we know so little about Nefertiti. But here's what's super exciting. And I did not know this until I started to dig into it. So Chibnall included Nefertiti because he'd read that we don't have any evidence for her existence, after a certain point. Like, she just appears stop cold. So he's like, great, I can sort of pluck her out of the time stream. Now, the very same year this aired, 2012, we found more evidence for Nefertiti after that date.
Well...
And we found it in the most Doctor Who location you can possibly imagine.
Mars.
A limestone quarry.
That they used for Mars once. Yes.
An Egyptian limestone quarry. They found some more evidence for her existence. It's entirely possible, and they think now more possible, because of this discovery, that she ruled on as queen, as pharaoh in her own right afterwards.
Interesting. Okay.
Actually did some pretty cool stuff. She changed the entire religion of Egypt, which I believe her husband had tried to turn Egypt into a sun god worshipping country.
He was into Ra.
He was into Ra. Like, one aspect of Ra, I think, was Aten. Anyway, I get very bad on names of Egyptian pharaohs and stuff like that.
So Sutek. He's cool.
Sutek, I can say that. I can say Nefertiti, and I can say Tutankhamun, who was the kid who followed on after the pharaoh that was probably Nefertiti. Now there was precedent for a woman ruling solo as pharaoh, and the predecessor did what we think Nefertiti did, which is give herself a new male name.
Oh, wow. That wouldn't have happened to be Aramem, was it?
I don't know.
I don't think she ever gets a chance to be pharaoh, unfortunately. I mean, she is briefly. Anyway, little fun times and Big Finish for Aramem if you ever want to check it out. I
will definitely do that. But yeah, it's interesting because, like, history is time travel. History is alive, and it is more alive even than Doctor Who can make it. Well,
maybe she looks so. Spoiler alert! I mean, obviously, it's dumb to even say that sometimes in this podcast, but she does end up with Riddell at the end.
Yes,
in honor about like 1900 or so, and the implication being that she, that's where she lives out the rest of her life, as short or as long as it may be.
Yes.
And so, I guess now we have to figure out some headcanon way to get her back. Like, we got to do a sequel, essentially, to Dinosaurs on a Spaceship.
Well,
get those two actors back.
Chibnall did originally intend that the Doctor was picking him up because Riddell was about to die.
Right, I read about this.
Yeah, that it was his last night on Earth, whether or not he knew it. And that sort of explains why the Doctor's coming to pick him up. Seems like a pretty important point. But anyway, we'll get to that. We'll get to Riddell. I want to stick with Nefertiti for a second. So we don't know. So it did read as a little weird to me that Amy was sort of fangirling over her because, the very, very few things we actually know for sure about Nefertiti. One of them is that she had 6 daughters, weirdly, and one of them.
We know she's famous.
Yeah, she's famous.
I've heard of you.
The reason Nefertiti is so famous is because the bust of Nefertiti, which was uncovered by Germans in 1910, 1911, thereabouts. And this is super topical because they basically stole it. Or they shipped it out of the country, told the Egyptian customs officials. Yes. Well, yeah. We'll just lie to the locals and say this. Oh, no, it's just a bit of granite. You don't need to look at it. They ship it back to Berlin. It becomes a sensation. And the bust of Nefertiti, which, by the way, was the influence for the Bride of Frankenstein's hairstyle. No kidding.
Oh. Didn't know
because
that.
it was just became so iconic when it was on display in Berlin. And there's the Hitler connection. Because Hitler actually, in a way, I'm never going to say this on the podcast ever again. You do not, under any circumstances, got to hand it to him. But he did want to return it to Egypt to curry favor with them. And Egypt was sort of fighting that battle today. So there's your Hitler connection. Now, how about the Doctor Who connection? Did you remember when we might have seen her in I'll give you a clue, it's a Capaldi episode.
Yeah, I think it is a Capaldi episode. Oh God, what was it? It wasn't Sleep No More.
No.
Was it? It was the pyramid at the end of the world because there's pyramids in that.
No, but it is a Bill episode. And we've been there. I'm doing it right now. I'm doing the title right now. Yes. It is Smile.
Oh, yes. It's one of the things that's in the ship. They're shipping all this stuff because it's implied that this is the last humans and they're fleeing this Earth that's getting destroyed, and they brought all the stuff from civilization, and that's one of the first things they brought, I guess.
That's right, and I'm hitting the bingo button that we don't yet have. We can put that in post, but that's a Nefertiti bingo. She's in Smile. She's in Dinosaurs in a Spaceship. So far as we know, that is a Nefertiti bingo for Doctor Who.
Nice.
Yeah. Our first full queen.
Our first Nefertiti bingo card.
Yes.
I don't know if it's our fills in the Egyptian queen Pharaoh bingo card. Wasn't Cleopatra in some episode somewhere, or did you just mention?
Yes. Well, certainly she's mentioned as like a conquest of the Doctors.
Right.
Doesn't he call her Cleo at some point?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. There's a certain mention of that.
I feel like there's like a quick cut scene somewhere in series 5 where she's kind of there. Or there's like an extra.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's certainly not a queen bingo. And Queen Elizabeth II, wherever she is now, may she rest in peace, is probably livid that Nefertiti beat her to the Portolan bingo. I'm sure that's what she's most concerned about, because we haven't been to Voyage of the Damned, so we haven't seen, the QE2 impersonator's actual appearance.
True.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's Nefertiti. I kind of like that she's a badass, but as you say, it is a bit undercut by the fact that she fancies Riddle. It's a little bit, I get the heart wants what the heart wants. I just don't. And I guess, you kind of get that too. Like, he's sort of this manly man, or fancies himself that way. I mean, the thing is, he's like, what I don't like, and we can transition a bit to Riddell, who I think is he's exactly the guy you want on this adventure, which is weird because the Doctor didn't know there were dinosaurs in the ship. Like, he's totally the guy you would recruit if you knew. So it's a funny coincidence. But if you compare him, I think there's a natural comparison to Muldoon in the original Jurassic Park, right? Who is the big game hunter, Muldoon, I mean, I gotta say, is just more thoughtful, and you kind of want that. I get that it's okay to have, he's just this chest thumping masculinity guy, fair enough, and sort of leaning into that. But you also want the other side too. You want to see a little bit of, the competency, like why this person has their job. I guess there's some of that towards the end, but the idea that there should be more thoughtfulness there. He should have had more of a moment, I think, with Nefertiti
that wasn't just comic relief to really sell that ending. Because otherwise it's just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess, opposites attract or something. But that's it. There's nothing more to it.
It definitely gives you the sense that, this is definitely, we're seeing the evolution of Chris Chibnall here, right? He would not do that today. So once again, Chibnall versus Chibnall. That it just wouldn't happen. Also, we should mention that he was supposed to be a cowboy character. That was the original idea.
Be like American.
Charles Buffalo Jones, a frontiersman, 1844 to 1919.
And that would have been a real historical figure.
Yeah, and he helped save the bison. So he wasn't a game hunter, he was a game saver. But, of course, Town Called Mercy came next, so Moffat said, no, too many cowboys, basically.
Well, I'm also like, that's a little over the head. I prefer, like, having some, like, it's like, that's still too pure. That's a little on the nose for Doctor Who. Like, this person, it's a really nice person from history. It's like, well, I don't mind pulling out people who have different historical contexts and challenging someone to sort of not necessarily overlook what we might see as sort of archaic negative qualities and just sort of like correcting for that. Like, okay, this guy's, yes, he's kind of a bit of a sexist, certainly, but it's like, well, he's from 1900. I mean, what do you expect? You get anyone from that era, you're going to have obviously different attitudes. So I like that choice as opposed to just getting someone who we automatically would root for just because of it happens to align with some politics that is more popular today.
But you do sort of want to see his conversion, right? Like that Amy is literally talking gender politics to him. Like she has that great killer line about, that's what he needs, or what he's avoiding, or I forget how she puts it. She puts it much better than I do.
She said something at one point where she's like, I'm worth at least two men or something like that.
Yes.
That's kind of it. And
yeah, but you can come along if you like. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, he kind of admires the moxie, which is cool. But I remember,
right?
I got to say, I was watching this with Jack and Grace, as I always do, and Jack was kind of rolling his eyes there. Okay, yeah, I get it, Amy. Like, and I do feel like, I think it was just too much because that they lean into that as sort of comic relief, and some point they're kind of, I don't know if they're really making a point, but it's just that tension, that sexist tension it's all style, no substance. And then by the end, you're just kind of tired of it.
Well, isn't it interesting that we've come from The Doctor and the Widow and the Wardrobe, which I mentioned in that, like, Madge is a great character, but it is sort of a little condescending towards, how great Mum is and how important Mum is. And the angel in the house, we talked about that Victorian notion. Then we get Waters of Mars with a female commander who's, like, it's just not even mentioned. It's just that she happens to be a woman, right? It's Lindsay Duncan. She's just a great, competent leader. Nothing more needs to be said about it. And now we've gone sort of back while going forward, weirdly, in time, chronologically, to this other sort of slightly condescending thing about, how great Amy is, and Amy is the queen, and, everyone connected with Amy as a pond, all of that stuff, which, again, teeny bit condescending. Towards it. I mean, Karen Gillan is just great. Whenever Amy's on screen, she's just great. You don't need to say it necessarily as much as they do, right?
Yeah, exactly. Don't need to don't preach.
So I think one of the reasons, show don't tell, and it is kind of telling, right? That the Chibnall, like, we're seeing some early warning signs, I think, of Chibnall's run here. And by the way, it is very interesting. In Revolution of the Daleks, you mentioned the fact that the date lines came up, right? Which is a very Chibnall era thing. And they come up here as well with Nefertiti and Riddell.
Oh, that's right. They were a little more subtle. They weren't like right in your face. Chibnall got a little bolder with that later on.
He certainly did. But also there's the warning sign of, like, he ditched the whole thing of Riddell dying the next day, which seems like a super important plot point that would make you more sympathetic to him. And he didn't insert a line of Riddell sort of having some redemption. Right? Just something, just one line that would make us feel more comfortable with, the badass Nefertiti going off with the sexist dude at the end.
Yeah, and I guess if excising the line at least gets you to believe they live for a while, right? Because if they left that line in, you would be thinking like, wow, does Nefertiti like only have a day to live now? Like,
Yeah.
and she goes back and her reward is that she gets to be with this guy one night and then dies.
Yeah. I
so
mean,
there's
I
that.
guess you could sort of, you know, solve that with like she's holding a space phone that the doctor's given her, and like we see them texting or talking in the tent. You know, it's
Yeah.
you could easily add a minute there.
Yeah, and they definitely like they took out the wrong stuff because and we'll come back to Brian in a bit, but I will say one of the things they should have taken out or redone entirely are those robots. I found the robots, Solomon's robots, to be entirely annoying and just tonally wrong. I get that you obviously they're comic relief. They're played in there, you know, and they're definitely appealing to kids. I mean, you're going to expect some younger kids tuning into something called Dinosaurs on a Spaceship.
Yeah.
But again, you said condescending. That's the word that's popping into my head too. Like, okay,
Totally.
here's a silly robot for kids, and doesn't even have that sort of charming 80s quality that Gadget has, because Gadget's a silly robot in Waters of Mars, but he doesn't really speak. He doesn't really have, you know, he's just kind of fun looking and helps out and has his catchphrase. Whereas these guys are the script is trying to be funny with them. It's not really. And I can forgive that. The thing I can't forgive is that there is a very dark turn midway through this episode where it's revealed that these robots murdered the Silurians. I mean, it's Solomon directing them, so it's really Solomon that we're supposed to hate. But the robots spaced everybody and worked with Solomon to do that. And that's not funny in any way, right? Like that, like if we're made to think about that, and we know Silurians are real people, and even though we actually do see one, we see one on screen. So I just thought that if you were going to do that twist, I would much rather see like merciless Maximilian in the black hole type robots that are just cold and efficient. Instead, I can't even believe these robots credibly did anything. Certainly not anything that dark.
So the robots were for me the most disappointing thing the first time out, and I think for a slightly different reason for you. And this is another connection to the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe. The robots were played by famous British comedians. David Mitchell and Robert Webb. If you've ever seen the show Peep Show, and if you haven't, go watch it. It's brilliant, brilliant comedy. There's like 7 or 8 seasons. It was very innovative. It's by the guy who went on to do Succession on HBO.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This was his first outing, which is one of the reasons why Succession is actually low-key a comedy, and a very dark one, kind of like Peep Show is. Its innovation was POV scenes, so everything you're seeing in the show is through the eyes of one of the characters, right? So Mitchell and Webb became very famous faces. They play flatmates in this series, basically, going through various trials and tribulations and girlfriends, etc. But you see them looking at it like, you know, so they became super famous, very well-known comedians in Britain. David Mitchell is very funny. He's sort of got that sort of cranky young British guy thing going on, which is kind of a trope. But so knowing they were going to be in this, like I didn't, with Doctor with the Wardrobe, I didn't know Bill Bailey was going to show up. He was sort of a nice surprise. Like, you know, we talked about how that wasted comedians. This wastes the hell out of Mitchell and Webb. They are not worthy of this. You know, think of a, you know, great set of American comedians of the 20s. Say this was
how about Canadian comedians?
Canadian comedians.
Wayne and Schuster.
Sure. That would work. I think the equivalent might be closer to something like if Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert were playing these robots. You would be like, why? What a waste. And how the hell do you dare give them lines like, you know, I think I'm scared a little bit of oil came out.
Right, yeah.
Dumb.
Just dumb lines.
You know, so I was so furious at this episode the first time around. And because it actually didn't bother me that much the second time, because I was so prepared for that, I actually looked on this episode, I think, way more positively than you did overall. Because I didn't want my Mitchell and Webb fandom to be hacked out once more. And like they really say so little, you can kind of ignore that they're even in it. I would almost love
Yeah.
to see kind of like an Alan Smithy kind of thing going on here, where we just dub over their voices with some other actors to forget it's them.
Yeah, I forget. I think the only thing they do, I mean, they shoot. Do they shoot the Triceratops, or is that
do.
Solomon himself? Okay, so the Triceratops, which is like, it really gets you to, again, Solomon's the one directing everything. So you're made to hate him, but it is.
Yeah. But why? Why do
yeah.
you need to shoot the Triceratops? This is Chibnall.
evil.
Something else that I think Chibnall does is he overcompensates.
Right.
For like if he perceives that his script is too happy, like he'll overcompensate with a scene like this where he's basically shooting the dog, and that's his old script writing rule: don't freaking shoot the dog, especially not in like a children's, story. I would have been devastated.
Unless that's the point, right? Like if you're doing Old Yeller, do Old Yeller.
Yeah.
But like this isn't Old Yeller. It's not even freaking close.
No.
Yeah.
No. So that's annoying. It was annoying that Tracy had to die.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sort of the writing, it's beneath Chibnall, it's beneath what we know he can do. The fact that there's a penis joke, with the guns, with Riddell cocking his gun. There's a balls joke with Triceratops sniffing.
It's so juvenile. It's like he's really consciously aiming for like the elementary school level here, and has really, honestly, misguided thoughts on what he needs to include to do that. And I've said before, Chibnall strikes me like he treats Doctor Who as a buffet, and I meant that generally in terms of how he structured his whole era. But I think in this particular episode, it's kind of an apt discussion too. I mean, you think he plucks the beach set from Flesh and Stone, Time of Angels, and Doomsday. Like he throws that in.
Right.
He's got
Bad Wolf
dinosaurs. We're gonna have some future stuff. Let's have a bad dude and some dinosaurs, right? Like let's just throw all this stuff in, and some story will result, and we'll just kind of, and some robots. Yeah, let's do that too. Like let's just, I don't know when to stop. Like
exactly.
Well,
he's downloading comics from the future. Yeah. Yes, and we should talk about Solomon, because when I started watching this, I honestly I had blanked so many of the details that I had this wonderful thing of being fresh again. I was like, and they're sort of playing it like Solomon is some old adversary of the Doctor's, right? Because he's like, Doctor, they say. Oh, finally, bring him to me. And it's a misdirect because he actually just needs a doctor.
A doctor, yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So that I was like, oh, I don't remember that. But it's all sort of playing into this season-long notion that the Doctor had grown too big and he's trying to hide himself. Right.
He'd erased his own history from time, and so no one really knows who he is. And if you try to investigate, you come up, snake eyes. It's all blanks.
Right.
But Solomon, it was interesting to come back and see David Bradley.
And, oh God.
We love David Bradley.
To talk about the headcanon of how Solomon looks like the first Doctor mid regeneration.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, we've got to get into that, but it's interesting to come back and see him doing this evil twist, and it really working. Like he's really great as this bad guy because you really believe it, and it really that's why it was such a great choice for, honestly, William Hartnell and the first Doctor, because I think that's why he's so interesting. Like there is an edge, and everyone knows William Hartnell was at an edge, a bit of an edge to him, certainly in real life, and it really gave a lot of weight to that performance. Like, and to see him sort of lean into that, like, okay, I'm gonna play the edge, and now I'm like evil tyrant guy. It really works. Again, I don't think they necessarily had to have him shoot the Triceratops and like have these weird tonal choices, but having a real bad guy, that really works.
And he's in leather. He was very excited, apparently, David Bradley was, about wearing this leather in this scene.
But I want to hear about your headcanon. I don't know if you want to do it here or if you want to throw it out when we get to Twice Upon a Time.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we sort of had a reference in Waters of Mars to Fires of Pompeii, which obviously, now retroactively has the Peter Capaldi thing, kind of built in. Like, that's why he chose that face. But, like, there's no way you can sort of have it be so timey-wimey that the Doctor's retroactively choosing Solomon's face as it's
yeah,
first.
I don't think we need to. We're going to say that, but maybe there's more to Solomon than is really shown here, because we've obviously seen a lot of sort of memory wiping technology.
I was going to say, is there a pocket watch? Is there a
either
pocket
watch or the Division? With their erasures, and maybe this is potentially a dark splinter of the Doctor, not the Doctor, but something like the Watcher gone awry, or the Valeyard.
Yeah,
exactly. And I like that headcanon, because I was just going to get into this as we were talking about Solomon, the climax at the end where the Doctor just kind of kills him. That's very that's a weird tasting ending, I have to say, that the Doctor redirects the missiles to destroy Solomon's ship. And you could argue it's a trolley problem, but it's not played that way. He's almost delighting in it, that he's figured this out. I'm saving the ship and I'm destroying you, which is very undoctor-like. But if he's actually doing more than just saving everybody and destroying this splinter version of himself, that provides a little more explanation and even weight to it.
I think what we may be looking at here is several layers of Chibnall weirdness. But you got to say that the original layer is the fact that Nefertiti was originally supposed to die. Good thing she didn't. Now, given the extra historical evidence that we got in 2012, but she was supposed to sacrifice herself to I guess blow up Solomon's ship or whatever, Right. But that, obviously that was a script change that came at some part of the process, and I don't think Chibnall fully thought it through. This version of the script, that basically he has the Doctor becoming a stone cold killer. It is nice though to see this right after Waters of Mars, where he was prepared to he wanted to make things better, even if it involved killing people. He was almost going a bit peacemaker-ish with the whole Time Lord Victorious thing. He's going a little bit twisted. So it's kind of nice to see that that's still maybe a part of his personality, even if it did just sort of result from too many Chibnall drafts or too few.
I got to say, it's so unusual. You want to see him at least have some anguish over it or have some conflict about it. You want that. I prefer the Doctor where he's remember Tennant would do this a lot of I've got to give them a chance. Even though the Sontarans are wrong and they're going to kill everybody, I've got to at least ask them nicely to stop, give them a chance to stop. And I'm not just going to blow them up, which I think it's almost like that's his code. And again, he's violated the code. I mean, he didn't really have the code until the new series, but retroactively, I think it works. And this,
you say it's a trolley problem.
I mean, it is kind of a trolley problem. Kind of.
Kind of. Because, okay, so Solomon's going to die either way.
Because of the...
If he stays in the ship, the missiles will kill Solomon. Right? So
but he could leave the ship and then survive. It's just everyone on the Ark would die. So in other words, the missiles have to hit something.
Yes.
And that's why it's a trolley problem. I mean, presumably they can't just switch them off or, jam their guidance or whatever.
Right. But the trolley problem is usually, are you going to kill 5 innocent people or are you going to kill 1 innocent person? This is as if, one of the people had unhooked himself from the 5, the streetcar line where the trolley's heading with 5 people, and he's like, I'm going to leave you all to die, haha, and he goes and straps himself to the other line, right? So he's no longer really innocent.
Yeah, it's too fair. I mean, but it is then now you have to move the thing that's going to kill the trolley to kill that other guy.
Yeah.
And
it is the Doctor dispensing instant justice, frontier justice. Yeah, but he's also got a ticking clock, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, if the missile's got to hit something, he made the right call, and I feel like he just does not show quite enough remorse or conflict there. He's just kind of whatever, you were evil, boom, great, rah, rah, we win. Where it's you kind of want to see the good Doctor come out and sort of sorry, Solomon, but it's got to happen this way.
Well, and again, this is, and this is sort of a theme throughout the episode that, again, as with the Doctor and the Widow and the Wardrobe 2 episodes earlier, we're looking at a Doctor who's basically without human companions. Like Amy and Rory are not traveling in the TARDIS full time at this point. They've settled down.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point of season 7A was what happened. Moffat wanted to see what happens after, right? So they're not really compared. So he's still in this phase of like going a little loopy. It's kind of why he's assembled the time team, the gang, the proto fam. That kind of makes sense. But yeah, it also makes sense that he's a little bit colder about his decisions, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Remember, he's spent 200 years out there on his own. We recently had the God complex.
I think this kind of works because then you kind of like look at how he behaves in a town called Mercy, which is right after this, and there's definitely more of, and I think it's played real much better in terms of like the conflict within him. But there's darker, sort of more adult themes in that about killing. I think this works. It might have been a deliberate choice to have him go this way, in that they thought about this Moffat of he's going to be a little loopier, a little darker, a little more an edge to him. I think in that context, it's okay.
It makes him more of a three-dimensional character thing, especially when you contrast it with he is extra childlike. No one is more excited about discovering dinosaurs in a spaceship than the Doctor is.
Yeah.
And also the line that really sticks with me is where, Rory's dad, they're on the beach, Rory's dad wants to get Rory the trowel and put it on his Christmas list. The trowel that he's taking into the beach to discover. And Rory's like, Dad, I'm 31, I don't have a Christmas list. And the Doctor shouts from far off, I do! And I'd forgotten about that. That is perfection. That is such perfection that the Doctor would have a Christmas list.
Yeah. Well, this is why my kids both liked the episode, I got to say. And even I think Jack even said at one point after we just finished watching, they're like, that was okay, but Matt Smith is the GOAT because he's so funny. Like his comedic presence, again, full on here, just his manic stuff where he's like, I've never had a gang before, and whipping around and aiming like a sonic screwdriver at Brian, and when he kisses Rory full on the mouth, which was apparently an improvised scene. Matt Smith just did that himself because he was just so into his character and so into the moment. I love that. I love that performance. I love that Matt Smith's instincts at this point. I mean, they're good and they're excellent at this point. Like this is his last season. He knows his character. He knows the energy. And he just does it, and it so works. He's just a bonkers Doctor doing stuff and loving life.
And did you notice, by the way, the part where he said he's a Sagittarius? Probably.
Yes.
You know the significance of that. I only know that I hate astrology, but I only know this because my birthday is November 22nd. Doctor Who's birthday is November 23rd. I know that I'm right on the cusp. I'm right at the end of being a Scorpio. And so Sagittarius is next. So I often tell people when they ask what sign I'm in, I'm a Scorpitarius. So I know from Sagittari, but the fact that the Doctor is probably one, just a nice reference to the show itself.
Well, it's funny. I wonder who put that in, whether it was Moffat or Chibnall. I'll give Chibnall the credit, but it's like that's definitely such a super fan thing to throw in. And I think maybe they were just waiting. If it's Moffat, he was waiting for some line of how observant the Doctor is or some quality of a Sagittarius. Just boom. Oh yeah, I've been meaning to slip in the Sagittarius line. Good, get that in there. Do it.
Yeah, because we are now in the same season as Day of the Doctor, right? And with all the references to November 23rd and the time that the first episode screened and all of that.
So I want to talk about Brian at some point, but before we do that, before we do Brian, I got to go to Pete's continuity nerdy corner. And let's talk about the Silurians for a moment.
Okay.
So this somehow is supposed to fit into Silurian continuity, and it might be the Silurian, and they're all really bad. The thing is, as soon as you do the Silurians, it's messed up, right? Like you're just kind of like, okay, the name makes no sense. The follow-ups that tried to correct the name also don't make a ton of sense. They make more sense, but the point is the Silurians are associated with dinosaurs because they're supposed to be reptile people from the dawn of time. Although no episode has ever said that they actually come from an era that also has dinosaurs. We sort of infer that here and there, but the only time they sort of tried to pin it down, they said it was from the Eocene era, and Silurians talk about hunting apes. Well, apes didn't really exist until like 25 million years ago, which was after the Eocene era, so that doesn't make sense either. It's, in other words, it's all super unclear. But forget placing a date for a second. If the Silurians have technology to send dinosaurs on a spaceship and a spaceship the size of Canada out into space, why was that moon thing ever a problem for them? I mean, like, you'd think they would have had like colonies all over the place, and maybe they have. I wouldn't mind seeing some future episode showing that Silurians have colonized other worlds, and maybe they come back to Earth at some point and try to wake up. Hey, that's a pretty good big finish right there, guys.
Hey.
But you just start to question, like, what the hell, like, what were they doing in this Silurian arc? And then once it's saved, they just take it to Siluria. Like, why wouldn't you create like Jurassic Park now that it's like this thing's come back to Earth and there's no Silurians to take care of any of this stuff anymore? Well, like, hey, humans are kind of interested in dinosaurs too. I mean, it was our planet. Let's create a nature preserve.
You know what it is? Our scientists were not preoccupied enough with whether they could. That's it. 24th century scientists. They're too aware of where their egos can take them.
So yeah, I think the lesson is like there's no happy medium where the Silurians are, like on terms of dating them. But I do like the idea of the strengthening the association between the Silurians and and dinosaurs. I would love to see more of that. I would love to see the Silurians, like, riding down. There's books that have the Silurians in them and they ride like raptors and stuff like that. And I would love to see full on dinosaur Silurian society at some point. I think that is something that the series has never ticked that box. And I would really, really like to see it. This could have been that episode. This isn't that episode. But it would be an amazing thing.
Well, maybe. Have you ever read that the kids' book Dinotopia?
No, I never did. I never. There was like a movie too, right, or a series or something. I never.
Was there a series? But I don't know. I love the idea, and it's been done in science fiction. Harry Harrison did it with East of Eden, I think was it West of Eden? Anyway, it's an idea that's been done. Love to see it. Love to see a dinosaur society. The Doctor actually visiting a dinosaur colony. Maybe it's a dinosaur base under siege.
Oh,
from humans. How about that for a twist? Yeah, but Doctor Who can do that now. So there you go, RTD. There's an idea for your next season with Shruti, if you are indeed running one.
Anyway, back to Brian.
Back to Brian. I love Brian, and this is my biggest takeaway here. I mean, long time Pull to Open listeners may remember that I lost my dad last year, and Brian is so dad. He's so British dad that it got to me. The way that he said, "Don't be ridiculous" about the beach being on a spaceship, that was very my dad. Having a trowel in your pocket,
that's extreme dad.
Oh my god! And it's one of those trowels that you just like. He's like, I've just got the tool for that. Yeah. It's very him.
Grab that in the Home Depot checkout aisle. They got him just $10.99.
And just the fact that he goes from being a guy who, I think of Rory's words, he says that he goes down to the shop and he goes golfing and that's about it.
Right.
Going from that to taking a trip to Siluria, it just is such a pleasing story arc to me that I absolutely love Brian. He really inhabits that role. It's clear that he and Rory have a difficult relationship, but then they pilot the ship together, and it's great for dads and sons. So yeah, I think this episode got to my heart, and I got to it through Brian.
I think that's a strong part of the episode. I think the mistaken companion, and we can talk about him being a companion, stowing away, unwittingly, is good. All the lines between him and Rory are probably some of the most memorable stuff. And even them piloting the ship at the end, even though it's all contrived and shoehorned in, That worked. My problem with it is that it's peripheral to the main story. They never really get a chance to interact that much with what turns out with the Solomon and everything else, and instead they involve Nefertiti more in that, which it wasn't necessarily bad, but it's like this is kind of the thing with this episode. Okay, what they found is you get a gang together. It's gonna, unless you're really, really skilled at it, you're going to have just a bunch of threads that might not necessarily interact or intertwine in the best way. And you might end up with just, okay, so that happened.
Yeah.
And this thread was kind of okay. And this one kind of sucked. And some of these other ones just got all tangled up and didn't go anywhere.
It definitely deserved more space, their relationship. And I love that Rory gets a bit back. I mean, the fact that Solomon orders the robots to shoot Brian in the shoulder is a great use of like showing Solomon as evil. That's why you don't need him to shoot the Triceratops. But also gives Rory an opportunity to pull something magical out of his pocket and to prove to his dad that he is worth, something as a nurse, and get through that difficult relationship and heal him. It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful scene.
No, I love that. I thought it was a good. Yeah, that was a good moment. I really echoed in my mind. I remember I thought of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade right there, where another similar sort of moment where father gets shot and then proves to be kind of a bonding moment with the son. So
beautiful stuff.
And also emphasizes the evil of the bad guy. So if only they had done more of that.
Okay. Well, we have 4 questions coming up. I do just want to throw in 2 more quick things about this. First of all, I did not know that this had the largest set in Doctor Who history lead up until that point, and for a corridor. That's right. So it's literally the largest corridor in Doctor Who history, right here, that they're running down or scampering down on a Triceratops.
I wonder if that stat does that include Legend of the Sea Devils? Because they did they made that massive ship. That was like the only thing they could tout of that episode. That was like they spent a ton of money on the stat. But I don't know if it's the biggest.
Right. It was certainly true at the time. It was true in 2012, but I just love the idea that at the very least it's the largest corridor. And I wonder if the randomizer is sort of bringing us to after the giant corridor in Waters of Mars, is the randomizer just looking for larger and larger corridors? Well, it hit the jackpot here.
Nice.
No bikes, but there is a Triceratops.
Yeah. Well,
I'd also say one more thing about Rupert Graves, who plays Riddell. That fans were absolutely squealing because at the time he was a huge hit on Tumblr. When Tumblr was a thing. In fact, if you searched Tumblr for Silver Fox, it was just Rupert Graves gifs coming up as far as the eye could see. So I think that was definitely one reason for bringing him there. Perhaps why Riddell gets away with a lot more than he should.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Speaking of the cast, something notable about Brian Williams. I was reading that Mark Williams, which is funny, that he had the same last name.
I'm ready. I got my name.
You've got the part. He voiced Maxwell. Max from Stockbridge in Big Finish. So I guess this is a recurring character in the comics. I forget his last name. Maxwell something.
Maxwell Edison.
Edison, that's it. Maxwell Edison in the comics. And they've brought in some of the characters from the comics to Big Finish Audios. And apparently Mark Williams is the voice of Maxwell Edison as well. So. Yeah,
he also voiced some Sarah Jane Adventures stuff, I believe. He was not underused as a comedian. He's also a famous British comedian. Was on something called The Fast Show. Definitely Google it. Great stuff.
And Brian and Maxwell may both be companions, according to our new system. So we will, in a future episode, talk about in detail our system, but we have points that we award them for traveling in the TARDIS, for being in more than one story, and Brian makes the cut.
He does.
So,
Brian, that's the big surprise. Go check out. Can they check out our TikTok live? Will that be up on our?
We'll get it
TikTok
somewhere.
Feed? We'll get it somewhere. We'll figure it out.
We'll find it somewhere. It'll be either on. You follow us on all of our socials on YouTube and TikTok, and you'll figure out the system.
Yeah, you never know when it crops up.
And there's a few other things we got to figure out before we leave Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. And
That's right.
to help us are some questions. The questions are the 4 questions to Doomsday. First question. Why did the randomizer take us here? Which we've kind of already covered.
We have. I don't think we've really gotten on Chibnall's case enough about the 10-month gap. The fact that the fam was whining about it, and Amy Pond, being Amy Pond, just sort of casually mentions it to the Doctor. It's like 10 months this time. It's like, I know, and it's just a thing. It's just a line of dialogue. So I wonder if, did Chris Chibnall remember that when he wrote Revolution of the Daleks? Was this a deliberate riposte? That was an attempt to show that Yaz was really into the Doctor because she had a different reaction? But then, Ryan also had a different reaction. The Ponds were too grown up for the Doctor now.
I almost feel like fans maybe probably with one fan wrote in after this episode, well, I'd be more pissed than Amy, and I think people should be angry with the Doctor. And maybe they got that letter and just thought it was this is representative of what people think. But I don't think it is. I think basically Amy is pretty good about this. And she's like, yeah, I get it. You're a Time Lord and you're idiosyncratic at best. So you kind of come back whenever. And she's used to it at this point, certainly. So she's like, yeah, it's been 10 months, hopefully, you'll eventually, you'll come back, keep coming back again. But she's also sort of mentally prepare herself. There's going to be some point where he just doesn't come back.
Yeah. And there's, so the other Revolution of the Daleks connection, kind of a patriarchal asshole in both. In both of those scripts, and they both sort of get away with it.
Oh yeah,
they both get what they wanted. Riddell and Robertson. He has this, but Robertson's definitely written a lot more critically, right? So there's your Chris Chibnall upgrade over 10 years.
Yeah.
With the Doctor, Winter, and Wardrobe, there's another look at Smith without proper companions, the fact that he's still a bit loopy. It's just 2 episodes after. The randomizer does love to do that. It's skipping over Asylum of the Daleks, which is very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely on a bit of a Smith kick here, and wants him Smith at his loopiest. We even said, I was actually listening to the Dr. Widow in the Wardrobe episode we did, and we talk about how he's this is sort of late era Smith, that he's really understands his character and he's going a little nuts. And that we brought up, we talked a little bit about season 7A, and is that, would that end to Amy and Rory been better? If the last we saw of them was in the Doctor and the Widow with the Wardrobe. And we get Brian.
We get Brian
going back. So I don't think it is, but it is, again, should the end be something? I think the end should be something other than they did. And I think the interesting stuff here could have gone in another direction. I think they're kind of hinting at that other direction here. But, where they ended up going was probably not exactly the right choice.
Yeah, well, it was nice to see Brian. I've got to give Chibnall credit for Brian, by the way. It was his idea to put him in there. And it was nice to see the Ponds again. I think it sort of answered the should we have not seen the Ponds question for us.
Yeah.
I think on this evidence, I'm glad they were still in it. I also have a soft spot for the Power of 3, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah. All right. Second question. What if the evil plot had succeeded?
Well, the evil plot's got to be Solomon's. Or unless it's the Indian Space Agency's.
They're just trying to survive, man.
Yeah. They're just being a bit NORAD.
Sticklers for the rules.
Yeah, got to shoot down that Canada-sized vessel. It's a very important rule.
It's definitely Solomon's.
It's definitely Solomon's. But would he have gotten the whole ship blown up, if his plan had succeeded?
Well, which plan? Sell the dinosaurs or sell Nefertiti, right? So I don't see his evil plot succeeding in getting the dinosaurs because there's no one who can pilot the ship other than the Williamses. So since he can't do that, the plot succeeding has to be he gets away with Nefertiti. and the ship gets destroyed. Now you might be able to presume somehow they get back to the TARDIS in time, so maybe our cast doesn't all die. But then it becomes the hunt for Solomon, I guess.
Right, and or as we specified earlier, like trying to save the Earth from this rain of fire in
Right.
the upper atmosphere.
Yeah.
So a lot of Dark Doctor, Matt Smith running around going, "You stupid space agency people," you know. Normally it's just unit types I have to deal with, but you.
Yeah, gets a little bleak. I'm just kind of wondering, like, who's going to pay for an ancient Egyptian pharaoh or queen?
Yeah.
You know, like, I feel like what black market is Solomon going to? Like, what's the going rate for a velociraptor and wherever he goes? Like, and surely,
somewhere where dinosaur flesh is eaten.
Yeah, like where's dinosaur? Where are dinosaurs valuable other than Earth? You know, like you would think there's like so many. Like, I guess this is the 24th century, so maybe they're not that many colonies and they're not that far out yet. But surely there are way better monsters that are extraterrestrial, right? Like, who's paying for dinosaurs?
That was answered in the unseen follow-up, Planet of the 7-Year-Olds.
They pay top dollar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For a dinosaur with a spaceship? Come on.
You know, I just remembered on our dinosaur bingo, we've already got Mark of the Ronnie.
Oh,
because that had sleeping they looked sleeping anyway. Sleeping T-Rexes in the Ronnie's TARDIS.
That's right. Wasn't that was a T-Rex embryo, I think, in a jar.
But then it busts out sort of at the end, and then it's just kind of lying there. It doesn't ever do anything. There's no real dinosaur action, but it's like, oh, okay.
Just like the one Riddell steps over. All right, so that's the evil plot.
Well, we still have to answer, though. Where is the Clara Splinter?
And here is another interesting question on the Clara Splinter front, because, again, as with the Doctor the Widow Wardrobe, that was the last episode before we see the first Clara Splinter.
Okay.
Souffle Girl. This is the episode after. So you got to figure they're going to be, as whatever rule holds for before in the timey-wimey, Doctor's timeline holds for after, right? It has to be, whatever role Clara is playing here is huge. So, what have you got, Bean?
She can't really be on the Ark because that's Silurian Ark, and that she can't be here. You know what I mean? Unless she's part of the Indian Space Agency and she's kind of arming the missiles, and she just sets them all to extra slow after they launch. So, like, she makes sure that, like, those missiles are, like, just inching along as they go, and the Doctor has all the time he needs. That's about all I could figure out.
That could work. I'm going to suggest a slightly different place for the Clara Splinter to be, and that's ancient Egypt. Because if Nefertiti has to return, as we know now that there is evidence that she did, then how to explain for her absence? Well, her husband, also known as Amenhotep IV, or Akhenaten, there's my limits of my terrible ancient Egyptian pronunciation, had more than one wife. Nefertiti was known as the Great Wife.
Oh, okay.
So maybe Clara is wife number 2, who steps in to distract the pharaoh while his wife is off with, future hunter dude.
Well, I thought you were going to go that she's like impersonates Nefertiti.
Also possible.
And maybe the records here, things are a little more coincident in that Nefertiti leaves, she's gone. Clara comes in, but the husband would tell the difference. And maybe she arranges a convenient accident or trip for him, because she ruled alone, right? After
husband
he left, so maybe
die.
Maybe that all sort of happened around the same time.
Well, I mean, this is the great thing about ancient Egyptian history, is we know so little about it. You can really talk about inserting your own headcanon. That's basically all Egyptian historians are doing. based on way less material than we have in Doctor Who.
Maybe she doesn't have to be as ruthless, and she could just arrange for him to be, lost in time somehow, and then he gets transported. Maybe he hunts his first wife through cross time. So we have this interesting ancient love story grudge match going up beyond the two of them, and then Clara just rules Egypt for a little while.
I kind of like that idea of her actually being the Nefertiti that becomes the pharaoh. It would explain the name change.
And the radical policies.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that she brought religious harmony back and stopped all this monotheistic focus. I can see Clara doing that. So yeah, I'm going to vote for that one when it comes up on Spotify.
Sweet. Well, maybe that'll influence the next question, which of course is the only question. The final question for Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. What do we think of this episode? The Pull to Open rating system has 4 ratings. You could give it a Dalek, which is what we give a good episode of Doctor Who. An Ogron, which is what we give a perhaps not so good episode of Doctor Who. A Professor Hater, which is not so great episode, but at least we learned something. Or a Viscount banger, which we reserve for the best of the best. What do you say?
I'm going to ask this annoyingly with a question, which is, I feel that we haven't quite nailed down what the Professor Hater is and whether it's better. I originally intended it to sort of be a worse rating than the Ogron, but because we're such a positive show and so uplifting, and we try to find the good in everything, just like the Doctor does. Every time you said it, Pete, you've said that Professor Hater is not so good episode, but at least we learned something, which makes me feel that it's better than an Ogron. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. That's kind of what I was going for. That it was like, I'm glad I saw it, even though it's not a good episode, because now, like, it was trying something there that was unusual or weird, but it didn't work.
Okay, I'm going to go for your definition.
I feel like an Ogron's just lazy.
Yeah. I'm going to go for your definition here, because I think this could have been a Dalek. It only needs a few twists for it to be a Dalek. And, maybe you take a few elements out, you sort out the Solomon thing. Maybe you get a different character than Riddell in there, or maybe you just have it be about the Ponds and Brian. In which case, I think this would be much more focused, and it probably would be a Dalek. And maybe you take some of the poop and ball strokes out of it. But yeah, if that's your rating, if that's the way you're going to look at it, I'm going to call it a very kindly, twinkly, sparkly Professor Hater.
Well, that's positive. All right. Well, this is the dark twist at the end for this episode of Pull to Open. I'm just giving it an Ogron.
Oh,
this is, I would say, forgettable to the extreme. I honestly, even before I did my plot summary in TLDW, I had to read one. I had to be like, what happened in that? Because I watched this about a week ago, and I was just like, I don't know. You just find you don't care. Like, nothing really is used to, not even, I wouldn't say maximum effect, not even to half of its potential effect. None of the storylines that matter interact. And it just felt, like we said it before, it's condescending to the audience. Definitely not a good Silurian episode. Not even a great dinosaur episode. Yeah, I got to give it an Ogron. Yeah, there was a lot to work with here, and very little of it works. I'm glad we saw Brian. I'm glad that part worked, but not much else does.
Yeah, I think it's a top-notch Professor Hater. I'm going to put it at the top of all of my Professor Haters. May even one day become a Hater Dalek hybrid.
Whoa! All right.
for our next mini episode where we revisit our ratings, let's put a pin in that one.
You're confusing me, but I hope you don't confuse the randomizer, because it's time to activate it as we go back into our time ship and try to find out where we are going next.
That's right. We use 2 components. Pete has one. He has the Codex, which is very advanced spreadsheet. A spreadsheet that has been upgraded and now contains only the story, or will show us only the stories that we haven't been to in this vast archive of television called Doctor Who. And we used to go between numbers 1 and 302, but now we've downgraded it so that it's just one and however many stories we have left. And I plug the second number into random.org, which is a website that generates an actual random number based on the number of Canadian balloons in the atmosphere. Hovering over Montana. Maybe random.org is behind all of this. I did actually on Twitter, by the way, write a Doctor Who script involving sentient balloons after so many have been shot down over the US, so many UFOs in the past few days. Like sentient balloons escaping their masters, going into the upper atmosphere. It sounds like a total Doctor Who script for me. Anyway, we're not going to do that, but we are going to plug a number into random.org and get an atmospheric result for where we should go next. So, Pete, what is the maximum number?
So after my just now update to make the Dinosaurs on a Spaceship one of the done episodes, we are now at 229 left to go.
All right, 229. Wow, we're so close I can taste it. So we challenged the randomizer before I hit this generate button, traditionally, and it has actually been listening to us lately.
Yeah,
the randomizer is okay. No, not going to say it. I'm not going to give you that bingo card for free. But Pete, you got any challenges this time?
Yeah, although this will probably skew a little bit to New Who, but given that the only storyline in this one that I think worked was the Rory Brian one, I would love to see more about family, and specifically family of the TARDIS crew. But the TARDIS crew could include the Doctor, and he has a granddaughter, so
and he has a mum.
Work. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yes, I'm going to piggyback on that a little. I'm just going to adjust it. We are recording this 2 days before Valentine's Day. Let's go to an episode with a romance in it.
Ooh, not bad. Get one for all you lovers out there.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get some smooth Doctor Who episodes. Take us into the night. This could be our chance to do the second part of, Mind Warp, Trial of Time Lord. Get the Perry,
nice,
Brian Blessed romance in there. So let's go
romance or family
based, or even bromance. I'll take that.
What do you like, randomizer? Let's find out. Are you ready with the executor?
I am.
I'm ready with the codex. Let's ring it up in 4, 3, 2, 1.
Moisturize me.
42.
42.
Well, 42.
It's not what I know. It is not.
It's not 42.
It is the Mind of Evil.
Ooh,
look at you! No family, no romance episode.
Mind of Evil. I know nothing about it. What do you know about it, Pete?
It has the Master in it, and he's not the Doctor's brother, so still not family.
Is it not a bromance though? It's not.
It could. I don't think it's a bromance. But this will strangely fill in our longest block of done stories once we do it, because once we do it, we'll have done everything from Inferno to the Claws of Axis. So that'll be interesting. The codex slowly gets more and more full.
Block. And I do see that the Masters plotting to start World War III between the United States and China. Good thing that's not relevant to a present political situation in any way.
Oh, wow. That's true.
Hope that we survive to actually watch it.
All right, folks, this has been Pull to Open. Hey, we're a podcast. If this is not a thing you subscribe to yet, please do. There's probably a button somewhere. Go ahead and hit that. Hey, if you're watching us on YouTube, there's probably a notification button down there. Why don't you hit that so you can get some notifications whenever we have new content. Follow us on TikTok at Pull to Open, or on Twitter and Instagram at Pull to Open 63. Tune in for our TikTok lives that we're doing every Sunday before we tape the show. Check the app to find out when those are happening. Leave us a comment. Shout it out. Hey, leave us a review. We love those. Rate us on Spotify. Let us know if you thought Dinosaur on a Spaceship was a Viscount banger, a Dalek, an Ogron, or a Professor Hater. And come on back next time, where we will put our minds through the mind of evil.
See you next time, guys.
Bye.